So do electronic devices impact my baby's sleep or my child's sleep or even our sleep?
So they do. The World Health Organization just came out in April with their recommendations, and they state no or limited electronics for children under the age of 5. For babies under the age of 1, they don't recommend any of it at all, and between 2 and 4, very limited, so about an hour a day. And the reason being, there's a couple of reasons why. One, we know that it affects their brain development, but we haven't done enough research yet to know how exactly it affects it. And 2, our devices have blue light. Whether it's for adults or children, it shuts off our melatonin production. And it can do that for about an hour.
Hi, welcome to Social.mom. I'm Michelle Tiliakos. I'm a mom just like you, and I have 4 children of my own. Today we're speaking about sleep challenges, and I have with us Agnes Meyer, registered nurse of 15 years in labor and delivery, and owner of Mama Bear Holistic Care. Welcome, Agnes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So let's dive right in. How would you set up your baby's sleep environment?
So the first thing you need to do is you need to make the room as dark as humanly possible when they're napping or at bedtime. So what that means is, like, say they have a nap at 2 in the afternoon, you want the room to be as dark as it would be at 3 in the morning. So you can tape garbage bags if you want up there, you can put plywood, cardboard, or you can purchase blackout curtains, but you really want that room to be as dark as humanly possible when they're napping and at bedtime, because it helps with the melatonin production. Like, I don't know about you, but I can't sleep when the lights are on, right? And babies are the same way. Like, how can we expect them to nap during the day with the curtains open? And the other thing is that make sure that like, you got the blinds drawn completely down and tucked in, because you know that little light?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, they will find that light and they will look at that light. They'll use any distraction they can to not sleep. And the other thing is a sound machine. They are amazing. You want to purchase the sound machine, or you can get apps on your phone that play all night long. So the idea is that when they go to sleep, you turn it on and it's the same noise, same sound they're hearing all night long. So when they wake up in the middle of the night, which all of us do, babies do, toddlers, adults, if they go to sleep with that same noise and they wake up with that same noise in the middle of the night, it will help. It's not new noise, so they'll go right back to sleep. So the other thing to keep in mind is the temperature of the room. So you want it to be between 20 and 22 degrees. You don't want it too warm, because I don't know about you, I can't sleep if it's too warm or too cold. The same idea for babies as well.
Okay. So on that then, what does sleeping through the night look like?
So sleeping through the night is very different. So say like a 3-day-old baby, it's not the same as a 1-year-old. So at about 5 weeks or so, once breastfeeding is established, they should be waking about every 3 hours to feed, and that means in the middle of the night. Whereas a 9-month-old, they can go through the whole night without feeding. So it just depends on what age they're at. So when people talk about sleeping through the night, you got to remember that it's age dependent. Like a 1-year-old will sleep through the night, whereas 5-week-old will be waking up every 3 hours. That's what's normal. They're waking up every 3 hours to feed.
Okay. And you touched on 9 months old. Then does a child who's 9 months old need to wake up and eat during the night?
Not necessarily. When babies reach about 13 pounds or 6 months, they can go the whole night without needing to be fed. They have the reserves to sleep through the night. With that said, some mamas still like to feed their babies in the middle of the night, and that's okay, as long as it's an effective feed. As long as babies are not using the breast to put themselves to sleep, but are really getting a feed, then it's okay. It just depends on mom's preference.
Got it. And I'm really interested then, is the sleeping through the night like 12 hours or 10 hours?
So
what does that mean?
Typically about 12 hours. You want 12 hours of awake and 12 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. But again, what it looks like for a 5-week-old or a 3-month-old is very different than a 9-month-old, right? But I would say at about 6 months and older, they can do a 12-hour stretch. So if you put them down at 7, they'd be waking up around 7.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great to know what it looks like and what it, like
Yeah.
in hours, how much it actually
And
needs.
you know what? Every baby is different. Some babies, they need 13 hours of sleep and 11 hours of awake, or vice versa, right? So every baby is different, but on average, it's about 12 and 12.
Got it. So my next question leads to what do we do when babies are traveling? When we're traveling with our babies, what do we expect? Like, what can happen?
So a lot of parents will come to me and say they were sleeping perfectly fine until we went on our trip, and they had to co-sleep or either in the bed or in the same room, and then they came home and their child expected the same thing, right? Because they don't understand what sometimes means. So when you're traveling, what I recommend is take garbage bags with you and tape. And I know that sounds funny, but if you need to, I mean, most hotels, if you're staying at a hotel, they have the blackout curtains, but a lot of people stay in Airbnbs or other like rental homes. So take some garbage bags and tape the windows.
Yeah.
So then it's as dark again. You make it dark. You want to replicate their sleep environment that they have at home wherever you're traveling, right? And the garbage bags and tape, it's cheap, it's easy, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. Sound machine. So if you don't want to if you have a big sound machine, get an app on your phone that plays all night. My husband downloads, you can download it for free, and it's just rain falling, and we have it on a loop, so it plays all night.
Yeah.
And the other thing is take their sheet. So from their crib or from their bassinet, depending on how old they are, take it with you. Don't wash it, because you want it to smell like you're at home.
Yeah.
Babies, you know, as a mom, they love that smell. So if it smells like home, their new environment, it will help them sleep. And don't forget their lovey. So their little stuffy that they have, don't forget to bring that with them. That will help them a lot. If you're in a place where you guys all have to sleep in one room, you have a travel crib, put it in the bathroom if you need to, because then you're separated. It's dark in there, and they won't develop like a sleep prop, because even sometimes when you're sleeping in the same room, babies, that will become a sleep prop for them as well. Try not to make a sleep prop. So what I mean by that is, if you weren't sleeping with your baby or your child at home, try not to do that when you're traveling. Try to mimic and imitate as much as possible the sleep environment. With naps, do the best that you can, because honestly, if you're on vacation, you want to go get out and about, but at bedtime, try to stick to the plan as much as possible. And then if everything falls off the rails, when you come back home, just try to go back to your routine, and that will help them.
Like start fresh.
Kind of, yeah. Reintroduce everything to them.
I had a sister-in-law, and when she traveled, I always thought it was such a great idea. So if she traveled within 2 or 3 hours, they kept the same time routine as they would as if it was home. So if it was 5 o'clock at home, they'd be eating dinner, although it might be 8 or the opposite time.
So when you're traveling, if there's a big time difference, first things first, if you're flying, do whatever it takes to get you through that flight.
Yes.
So snacks, whatever you need to do to get your baby through that hump of flying. And then when you arrive, that's your new time. So say you arrive and it's 8 o'clock at night. It is 8 o'clock at night, and you kind of try to proceed as if it was 8 o'clock at home. Or like if you arrive at 10 a.m., do not go to sleep. I know you're going to be tired, and that's going to be your first instinct is everybody goes down for a nap. The problem is you're going to go down for a nap and wake up at 5 in the afternoon. Your body's had a huge amount of sleep, and then nobody's going to be able to sleep. So the best thing is proceed with your day as normal, and then have an earlier bedtime. It'll be better for everybody.
Right.
And babies are really, really resilient, and they handle travel really, really well. Much better than we adults do.
So going back to being at home, how should we transition babies from a crib into a bed?
So that's an interesting question, especially if moms are expecting their second child, because if their baby is like a year and a half old, and they want to use that crib, then they want to transition them into a bed. However, if you transition too early, they don't understand that 3 in the morning is not the time to come out of the bed and come to your room and be like, oh, it's time to play. So a good age is about 3 years old. And I know that a lot of moms are like, well, that's not feasible because we have a baby on the way and we don't have room for 2 cribs. What thing you can do is transition make their room into a crib. So what I mean by that is take everything out and just put a mattress on the ground. And then that way you can use the crib for the baby, and then their room has now become their crib. And so taking out all their furniture, that way they can't climb on anything, they can't pull any doors or anything on them, that will help. But 3 is a good age to transition them because they have the awareness that 3 in the morning is not the time to come and party in mom's and dad's room. And at about 2.5, you can introduce a grow clock.
Yes,
Which is really great. It changes color, so you can teach them that, okay, you know, when the light turns yellow or red or whatever color, you know, that's the time when we'll come and get you from your crib. And then when you transition them into bed, you can actually set a time and then tape the minutes, but just have the hour showing, and then you can say, okay, at 7 o'clock, you can now come out of your room.
Right, when they're older.
Yeah, after about 3, you can do that. But before then, they're not going to understand that. But I understand the challenges of having 2 cribs takes up a lot of room. So if you need to, then take their room and make it into a crib.
That's
and
great.
The other thing you can do too is if you have a crib jumper, lots of kids like to climb. And if you have like an uneven crib, so one side's higher than the other, and you've lowered the crib as low as it can go, flip the crib around. So the low side is now against your wall, and the high side is outside. So because it's lower and that side is higher, they'll less likely try to jump out of their crib.
Totally.
And get out of it.
That's great advice. I love that.
They love, once they learn to climb, any skill, right? Any skill that they learn, they want to practice a lot.
Yeah.
So that will help prevent them
That's
from
really
doing
great. And I
that.
love like just having a mattress in a room with some bed sheets and you know,
and I
the
know
pillows.
I know it's challenging because you have to take all the furniture. However, it does work. I had a little girl and she was ready for her own bed, but we didn't want to put her in bed because she was not even 2 yet. And so we just made her room the crib, a mattress on the floor. She loved it. She was an old soul.
Yeah.
And she loved that independence. And she did really, really well with it.
So once they're used to that, then you can put them into an actual
and once
bed.
they're older, once they get older where you're not worried about them pulling things on themselves, then you can change the room into, bring the bed in, and then you can have that. But slow adjustments will help rather than one big adjustment. And also, transitioning into a big girl or boy bed right before the baby is born is not a good idea because there's such a change when a new baby is brought home, right? And as much as, you know, everybody is loved, the dynamics change, right? Because now it's no longer the parents with that one child, it's the parents with the baby as well. And when you introduce too many changes, they don't adjust as well to the
So would you wait till after then?
I would.
Yeah.
So if you're going to introduce a big boy or big girl bed, wait until after the baby's been
around for a while.
Yeah. And they've adjusted to it.
Got it. So there's not all these changes happening.
I mean, it's a huge change for all of us, but especially for these little ones that aren't verbal. And how do they act out? What can they control, right? They control what they put in their mouth, what comes out of them, and their sleep, right? So the least amount of changes that we can make in that area will help.
That's great. All right, so do electronic devices impact my baby's sleep or my child's sleep or even our sleep?
So they do. The World Health Organization just came out in April with their recommendations, and they state no or limited electronics for children under the age of 5. For babies under the age of 1, they don't recommend any of it at all. And between 2 and 4, very limited, so about an hour a day. And the reason being, there's a couple of reasons why. One, we know that it affects their brain development, but we haven't done enough research yet to know how exactly it affects it. And 2, our devices have blue light, whether it's for adults or children. It shuts off our melatonin production. And it can do that for about an hour. So I don't know about you, but I know like if my husband is like staring at the computer screen or his phone and then we go to sleep, he has a hard time falling asleep. And it's because of that blue light. And it's the same thing with kids like teenagers. I know it's really hard, but maybe implement a rule after dinner, no phones. And that means adults as well, right? You got to practice what you preach. And I know it's hard because, you know, you come home, you want to get dinner on the stove, you want to get food in them, and you want to keep them happy. TV. The TVs don't have blue light. So if you need to have the TV going versus like having a handheld device.
That's really great because it used to be that don't watch TV,
I
you
know,
but now it's like
the lesser of the two evils, honestly,
is
a TV. And I know it's hard, but we really don't know how it affects babies, and we know that it affects their sleep. So anything that we can do to help sleep, you know, it doesn't hurt.
And before the interview started, we were really talking about how people nowadays don't get enough sleep in general, and how being set up early on would benefit everybody.
And it's good habits, right? Like the habits that you learn when you're young, honestly do carry over into adulthood. Like if you learn good sleep habits as a baby, it carries to toddler, adolescent, and adulthood. How many adults do you know that don't sleep well? And it's because of the sleep habits that they learned when they were younger.
So why is it important that a child learns to sleep in their own bed?
Because if they fall asleep in your arms, or in a rocker or something other than their bed, when you transition them into their bed, a lot of times they'll wake up. And why they wake up, it's because it doesn't sound the same, it doesn't smell the same, and it doesn't look the same. So it's important to teach them to fall asleep in their, whether it's the bassinet or crib or bed, yes. And that way, when they wake up in the middle of the night, they fell asleep in that space. They wake up in that space, it's the same space.
They recognize it.
Exactly. So it's not foreign. Like imagine you falling asleep in your bed
Yeah.
and waking up in the front lawn.
Yeah.
Like that's how it feels for these little ones. My son did that. He got used to falling asleep in grandparents' arms because he was the first grandbaby. And when everybody left, my husband and I were like, what is going on? You're fed, you're changed, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
He didn't want to fall asleep. Like he fell asleep in my arms and then I put him in the bassinet and like 20 minutes later he woke up, and it was because he fell asleep in my arms. I smelled good, right?
Yeah.
And warm.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I put him in this bassinet and he's like, what's going on? And so
And it's kind of that image that we always see of like moms and parents like just like putting their baby like so carefully to bed, and it's like they're gonna explode, like something's gonna happen.
But the thing is, babies, like adults, we wake up 4 to 6 times a night.
Right.
It's normal. Most of us don't remember that wake up. So for babies, what happens is they wake up because they're now not in that same environment.
Right, got it. So earlier you touched on sleep props.
Yeah.
Like what is a sleep prop, and like are they good or bad?
So sleep props are anything that your baby relies on to fall asleep. So that could be anything from breastfeeding. And when I talk about breastfeeding, I'm not talking about effective feed. I'm talking about that flutter suck where you know your baby is not getting really much.
Yeah.
They're just using it to fall asleep. Soothers, again, if soother isn't an issue for you, I would keep using it. Soother saved my life.
That's really
Again, soother, it could be rocking, it could be sleeping with you, falling asleep in your arms, anything that your baby needs or child needs to fall asleep and stay asleep. But if it doesn't become a problem, then you can keep using it. But what happens is eventually it will become a problem, right? So soothers, for instance, right? When they're little, they fall asleep with the soother and then it falls out of their mouth. They're too little, they don't have, they can't reach out and grab the soother, right? That can be a problem. So what I recommend is putting 5 or 6 soothers in their crib, literally, so that when they can move, they can just reach over. They can reach over and pick it up. So sleep props, are they good or bad? The problem is your child is relying on it to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Yeah.
So it affects their quality of sleep and it affects their ability to fall asleep. So it's not so much bad or good, but you got to look at, is it affecting your child's ability to fall asleep and stay asleep? And if it is, then it is a sleep prop. And then you need to work on taking away that sleep prop so that they learn to fall asleep on their own.
Yeah, so even what you said there is you loved soothers.
Yes.
At some point, and then we hear about other parents eventually getting up to the point where they're like, okay, I need to take this soother away, or it's like they can't go to bed without it. So then it becomes bad or a problem.
It is, and so like I said, what you can do is, we were lucky with my son, he kept it in his mouth all night, but I know lots of babies that don't. So when they're old enough that they can move around, just put, seriously, 5 or 6 soothers in there, because you know how babies sleep all over the place, right? They move a lot, and then they can just grab it and put it in their mouth, and then it isn't your problem, because that's what happens. They rely on it, and then it falls out of their mouth, they wake up, and then you wake up because you have to go in and put that soother in their mouth.
So when we want to take that soother away or the sleep prop away, is there different ways to go about that?
There is, but honestly, I would recommend cold turkey.
Right.
With soothers, it's hard because, like I said, my son loved soothers, but for other sleep props, like breastfeeding, for instance, right? I'm not talking about like a 3-day-old baby.
Yes.
Right? I'm talking a child where breastfeeding has been established, you want to make sure that the feeds are effective. So when you're feeding in the middle of the night, just make sure the feeds are effective. So what I mean by that is big active sucks, swallows. Your baby's alert and feeding. Not that, that flutter suck where they're half asleep and their eyes are closed.
And they kind of...
Yeah. So you want to make sure that it's an effective feed. And like, say, for instance, like co-sleeping or falling asleep in your arms. That's why teaching them to fall asleep in their bed is so important, because then when they have those wake-ups, they're already in their bed.
Yeah.
So cold turkey, unfortunately, and lots of support.
For you and for baby.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Is you're going to support your baby, but you as a mom or as a parent, you need that support because it can be hard, right?
Yeah, totally. Emotionally, yeah, I get that for sure.
Like you're taking away, it's like, imagine I took away your coffee. Like how happy would you be with me?
Yeah.
Not very happy.
Yeah.
Babies are the same way.
Yeah, that's a really great example, actually. I love that. So talking about sleep training, there's a lot, it seems like I hear about it all the time. Does all sleep training involve crying it out?
No, it does involve crying though. The truth of the matter is we're changing the way that your child is sleeping. So that could mean taking a sleep prop away, and it means leaving them for a little bit of time to give them a chance to fall asleep on their own, right? So it doesn't mean you close the door, you come downstairs and you let them cry it out. In the past, I think there's a really bad association with sleep training because in the past it was the cry it out method where you literally closed the door and then you left your baby to cry. And that's not it at all. The idea is that you're supporting your baby, I'm supporting you so that everybody gets some rest, right? But babies are crying, why? As long as they've been fed and they're changed and there's not anything physically wrong with them. So always make sure that you contact your doctor before you start sleep training to make sure that they are well enough. Like say they were born with some congenital disease disorder. You just want to make sure that it is safe for them to start sleep training. And if they say yes, then go right ahead. But they're going to cry. You're changing their routine and you're taking the easy way out for them, right? So instead of giving them the breast to fall asleep or rocking them to sleep or whatever you were using to help them, whatever they were using to help themselves fall asleep, you're taking it away from them and they're upset. Well, how do they communicate? They cry. They can't tell us off. So what do? They cry.
That's right. And even when I hear you saying that, it's, as a mother, we kind of intuitively know what the cries mean. Like we can tell when they're really angry and upset, and there's other ones that are just kind of like they're uncomfortable or a little bit like frustrated. Yeah. So even that is like, I like how you said like babies will cry. And I think it's not the screaming like out of like red frustration.
Sick, that's different, right? I wouldn't recommend sleep training while they're sick, but if they're fine, they're healthy, they will cry. Because they're upset. As long as they've been fed and changed and you know they're okay, they're just protesting. It's like me taking away your coffee or whatever your vice is. You would tell me off. They can't, so instead they cry.
So is there different types of crying that can hurt your baby?
So definitely, like I had a client where they were worried because the dad had read some article about crying changing their baby's personality. And yes, babies that are abused and it's chronic abuse, that changes them and that cry is very, very different versus the crying of, I'm just mad at you because you've taken my easy way out in life. There's a huge difference between that. So that acute crying where they're like upset for a few minutes or whatever because you've taken away their vice, that's okay. But it's more that chronic and abuse where that crying will definitely, it will change a baby.
So what age can we start sleep training?
3 to 4 months.
Oh, that early?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And again, the key is with my sleep training method is we look at feeds as well. So it's not about, a lot of moms think, okay, we're telling you to take away the feeds. It's not that way at all. We work around feeds. We teach your babies to feed effectively, to not use your breast as a sleep prop to fall asleep.
Got it. So 3 to 6 months is the time, and what I'm hearing is that they'll still wake up to feed.
They will. The idea is, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Remember we talked earlier about what does sleeping through the night look like, right?
Yes.
For a 3-month-old, it's very different than a 9-month-old. A 3-month-old will still be waking up every 3 hours to feed versus a 9-month-old that really, technically, they can go the whole night without feeds. But if moms still want to feed the baby, they can feed them once in the middle of the night, but just ensuring that it is an effective feed. But really, a 9-month-old could go 12 hours without feeding and be okay.
Yeah, and what I also hear with that then is, or I'm just kind of getting right now, is that sleep training is really just teaching our baby to fall asleep.
It is.
And then setting up the space so they stay asleep.
Yeah. Like, I didn't know. I'm a registered nurse. I've worked with babies for, like you said, 15 years. I didn't know until I had my own that you have to teach them to sleep. And you know, there's that famous book to sleep.
Yeah.
It's true, right? Like, I remember I was like, what is the matter with you? Why won't you nap? Why won't you sleep? And the reason being is because you have to teach them to sleep.
And then in turn, we're actually teaching ourselves how to like get them to sleep,
Yeah, it's like any other skill, right? They have to learn to walk. We don't teach them to walk, but we teach them to read, to write, to eat, to do all of that. Sleep is no different.
Yeah.
Sleep is no different.
I get that now. So one last question. This has kind of changed over the years from what I've seen as a parent. Is it safe to swaddle your baby?
It is. However, the Canadian Pediatric Society doesn't recommend swaddling after 3 months or when your baby is rolling over. And the reason being is, imagine they're swaddled, so their hands are like this and they roll over. There's no way for them to push themselves back up, and then they're stuck literally lying on their tummy. So once they're rolling over, you can get different sleep sacks that give the same effect of being swaddled, but their arms are free. So that way, when they do roll over, they have that freedom to push themselves back up.
Great.
And I just wanted to add one thing, because I forgot to mention, when we're setting up the sleep environment, and I didn't know this until I started doing this, until I did sleep training, mobiles. Don't put a mobile above your crib. I had it, bad mistake. Put it over, if you have one, just put it over the change table. Any distraction that your baby, anything that can distract your baby, they will focus on that. So whether it's a mobile or they have the sound machines with the little lights that come out of it, again, you don't want any of that. Or you know, you can have the little Fisher Price, whatever, mobiles or whatever that have the lights, aquariums, none of that. It has to be dark. You really want that crib to be as boring as humanly possible to give them don't give them any reason not to sleep. I wish I would have known 10 years ago to not have the mobile there. It would have helped my son sleep, and it would have saved my sanity.
Yes. And even I love this conversation because as a mom of 4, gone through it many times, and each child is different. Each time that I'm going through it, my circumstances are different. And so what's great is that you've just given us advice for different scenarios, different times of life. And I think ultimately what I get from your conversation is that moms have to do what works, learn a little bit for themselves, and check in with their intuition of what's going on for them and their child.
They know their babies and child better than me. I'm there to support them, but I always say to moms, you know them better than me. You know their temperament. So what works for one child won't necessarily work for another, right? So I always say, you know their temperament, and you also know your limits, right? You know how far you can go. So I just say I look at each baby, each child individually, and then we go from there.
That's great. Can you give us an example of when someone would call you?
Usually parents will call me when they're at their wit's end. Either their child was sleeping through the night and is no longer, or their child has never slept through the night, and the moms get to that breaking point where they're just not functioning anymore. And what they do is they give me a call. So the way that it works is they give me a call or email me, and then we set up a time to talk. And then I ask them about their child, their baby, what's going on, are they breastfed? You know, I do like a little assessment over the phone. We talk about how my sleep training works, and then I tell them, like I send them a questionnaire, and then I come to their home. So all of my sleep training involves me coming to their home and assessing their home. If you don't live in the area, I do virtual consults as well. So it would just take place via Skype or
FaceTime.
Yeah. And then I come to your home and I look at the environment, and we talk about ways to set up the sleep environment to help their child sleep. And then we go through the plan. And then I talk to the mom about, is this realistic for you? Is this not? Because it has to work for their schedule. Like sometimes they have another child that's in daycare, right? Or they have school pickup. So how do you fit the nap in for the baby when you're doing preschool pickup or daycare pickup or whatever? And then the parents decide, okay, we're going to start this. They pick what day. And then it's 2 weeks of support where I call them, we do email, and I support the moms every step of the way, because I know as a new mom, I read a lot of books about sleep training, and it was really frustrating because I realized I did it all. And my son, it just didn't work for him because they're not robots. Every child is different, right? So you really have to look at each individual child and work with it and tweak things. And so you can read a lot of books, but it's nice to have that support, right? That way moms don't feel alone. And every day I email them, she fills out a sleep log just to see where they're at. And then we make small adjustments to help aid in the sleep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do moms have to wait until it's like they're just at that wit's end, or can they wait? Can they call you earlier? How do they know when to call you?
Well, that's up to the mom, right?
Yeah.
It's hard because, again, it's that we talked about that cry it out method. A lot of moms have this foreboding doom surrounding sleep training because they're afraid that I'm going to tell them, you're just going to close the door, your baby's going to cry, and that's it. And that's not it at all. So honestly, it's what is the breaking point for moms? And sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's their second baby, and they're like, no, like I have a mama right now, and she's got a newborn, and we've been working together since her little one was quite little, because she's like, I want to set my baby up with healthy sleep habits right from the beginning, because it was so challenging with her first. So it's really individualistic, and some moms they're not ready, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think the key is to remember that you have to teach them to sleep just like any other skill. And once you realize that, I think it's, moms are like, okay, I got to teach them to sleep. I got to reach out. And the other thing is it's amazing from the before and the after, right? You're already sleep deprived, you're tired. A lot of moms are worried that, they leave the pot on the stove, or, they do scary things because they're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
And then they say to me, you've saved our lives, because I literally can think clearly. I'm not emotional. I'm getting sleep. I feel like a better person. I had one mom say she liked her baby better because her baby was sleeping and mom was sleeping. And it's not that she didn't like her baby before, but when you're so sleep deprived and frustrated, it is so hard. We all know that, right? And so she was like, I miss my baby. My baby slept for 12 hours. I actually miss my baby. And how nice is that? And babies' temperaments are better too when they sleep. Like, how much nicer and happier are we as adults when we sleep? It's the same thing for babies. So moms see a huge change with themselves when they get to sleep, but also their babies are happier.
And I really hear there that, we're doing it for our babies, but we're also doing it for ourselves.
It is.
Because I know that first time when baby sleeps through the night, you kind of wake up like, I know. Oh my gosh, my baby slept through the night, and you're excited and a little scared, and, kind of all of the emotions happen. But it really becomes like, oh my gosh, I had a full night's sleep.
And how much better you feel when you've had a full night's sleep. And I think we've normalized sleep deprivation. Yes, it's normal. I'm not talking about, a 5-week-old or 6-week-old. I'm talking about a 6-month-old, a 9-month-old, a 2-year-old. Lots of moms have normalized that sleep deprivation, you're just never going to sleep again. And no, that's not true at all. And it doesn't need to be that way.
Yes.
We got to do a little bit of work though. You put in the work, you teach your child to sleep and healthy sleep habits, and it will carry them through into adulthood. And they will thank you later on in life.
I love that you're touching on the feeling of deprivation and desperation of parenting. My mom, and I love her to bits, she gave me the worst piece of advice. I was, just a few weeks into parenting, and she didn't know how tired I was. And I said something like, I'm so tired, when will I ever sleep again? And she jokingly said, never. And my heart sank because I just did not know when it was ever going to end. Like, she didn't know how I felt.
Yeah.
And so it's so great that you're touching on it in that there's a way that we can get through this, and it doesn't have to be this overwhelming, scary, and, you know, resentful thing that we go through.
No, it doesn't. Once you've established breastfeeding and your baby's about 3 months old, there's no reason why you can't slowly start teaching them to sleep. And like I said, every mom has their breaking point.
Yeah.
But I think really changing that conversation and not normalizing that sleep deprivation, and I'm not, again, we're not talking about newborns, but we're talking about like 1-year-olds, 9-month-olds, like 2-year-olds, right? That sleep deprivation doesn't have to be normalized. And yes, once they learn to sleep, yes, they'll still have hiccups along the way. They're going to get sick.
Yeah.
They're going to have developmental milestones. There's all sorts of things that will affect it. But if they learn healthy sleep habits at a young age, when they have those issues, they will go through it much quicker and then go back to normal sleeping.
That's so great. So if we have more sleep questions, where can we get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at mamabearholisticcare.com.
Thanks again for joining us. And the conversation continues over at Social.mom.